Hello and welcome to another episode of Twin the Studs. I'm your host Mark. Today I'm joined by Daniel and Garrett.
Hello.
And we're going to be discussing an entire theme as a whole, which is something we haven't done in a little while, but I'm excited to return to that format. It's a little more discussion-based, a little slower paced. Hopefully you guys can stick with us. This time it's going to be architecture, which is, I figured we would have talked about this earlier, but no, we've never even discussed this on the channel at all. So you guys both are pretty familiar with the theme, though. So, I mean, what's your experience with architecture? Have you collected it at all? Garrett, what's...
So, I've always liked Lego, and then I hit my dark ages around 13 or 14 years old. I was, at that point, I was an adult. I was too grown to play with toys.
Yes.
So I got rid of all my Lego, but I did still continue to buy architecture sets.
Because those are for adults.
These are for grown-ups.
Yeah.
So I would get these every now and then for, Christmas. I would get, the Big Ben, the London, stuff like that. So even throughout my dark ages, I still got architecture sets. That's kind of what kept me in Lego.
Nice. It kept that lifeline to get back into the real good stuff.
I knew I always liked Lego, but I was 14. I was a grown man. I mean, I couldn't play with toys.
That's terrible. I mean, I'm glad it kept you involved in Lego at least a little bit. Yeah. And then Daniel, you have any experience with architecture as a theme in your Lego life?
When I was young, architecture sets were boring and expensive.
They were.
Yes.
They were very expensive for what you were getting, and they were not interesting to me.
Yeah.
So they just didn't really seem like a good deal at a time, so I was not buying them back then. I think as an adult, I have more appreciation for that. I mean, I've taken classes in high school and college about, architecture appreciation and learning about different architects and stuff. So this stuff holds a little more meaning, and they're doing more, general world landmarks and things. So I think they're more interesting now, but when they first came out, it was not my cup of tea.
Yeah, the early days of architecture, we'll get into it just a second.
Yeah.
But, my experience with architecture, I think I was along your train of thought early on, Daniel. It's just this is kind of for, people who drive Volvos. It's like it's a certain demographic that like these kind of sets. And thankfully they continued and got more colorful, more elaborate, and honestly much larger, more significant sets down the road. Because now I think they're a pretty cool and appreciable Lego theme. But yeah, I still have only one architecture set, and I sorted it down. It was San Francisco. But we'll talk about what we collect and what we have in our collection in just a minute. But architecture as a theme started out in 2007 technically. We have probably some blurry Bricklink pictures of some of the early architecture sets. I'm not sure the entire story behind the generation of this, but I think it's something to do with the Sears Tower, now the Willis Tower, and a couple different iterations of that before other buildings started to pop up. But so Daniel, any thoughts about the kind of primitive, cold, small little buildings that were a little overpriced at the time?
Well, yeah. So I mean, when you pull up architecture on Bricklink, the first thing you get is some box sets from the 1960s or something that were 2x4 blue plates or something. It's okay, this isn't right.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems to start with a lot of kind of small towers and things. We had the Space Needle, a lot of the ones on the cover of this book here actually. You got the Space Needle, you got Willis Tower,
very concentrated.
Tower, the smaller Empire State Building. And it just felt like a lot of the same stuff, and they were using very basic brick, really extremely basic brick, and there weren't that many of them, so they didn't feel as substantial. If you had an emotional connection to it, it was a very nice kind of art piece to put up on a shelf or something. But I think, and I'm sure we'll get to this, they got a little more enjoyable when they got into more famous architects houses and structures and things that were a little bit more artistic rather than just skyscrapers.
Yeah, more than just a tower, right?
Yeah.
And of very basic elements. So, but I think one thing that architecture really found success in, even early on, was the skylines, which ended up being kind of a sub-theme of the theme itself. It was like a collectible. They were doing a couple per year. Now they've slowed down on it. But Garrett, is that something that you were interested in, the skylines?
That's mainly what I collected from architecture for a while, was the skylines. And I would line them all up. And I had the little micro AT-AT lined up next to them, he's hacking on the skylines.
Yes.
There you go.
So yeah, I really did enjoy the skylines. But I think the last one we got was Singapore?
Yeah, 2022 or 21? Yeah.
So it doesn't look like there's one one rumored for this year or anything, so I don't know if that sub-theme is gone, but I did really enjoy it. It was starting to get, like, the Singapore set is really cool, and it has some very cool pieces in it.
Or Tokyo, or some of those other ones we'll talk about in a minute, too. Yeah, wow. Interesting. Yeah. I think that it's almost worth saying that, like, in 2016 through 2019, there was a big peak of architecture, and they were releasing, like, 5 or 6 per year. And then, so before and after, starts to build up and then starts to decrease from there. Would you say that's like the best years of architecture, or is it just the more productive years of architecture?
For a while there, architecture really just became the Skylines theme.
Yeah.
And as much as I do like the Skylines, I really do like the large-scale architecture sets too, where we get, 1,000 to 2,000 piece set of a large-scale model, but it's micro-scaled. The Skylines are cool. I wish they would continue to do them, but if we're going to get, just a more detailed, more involved model over Skylines, I think I'm okay with it. But yes, I would say, when the Skylines started coming out, that was like the peak of architecture. We're getting so many at a time.
Yeah, so you think that was kind of like the heyday of architecture.
I don't know if we'll ever get back to that speed of architecture sets.
Now, one thing is worth noting is, like, people nowadays on, like, different discussion forums and such will say, what happened to architecture? There's less architecture. And I think it might have had something to do with maybe a little bit of overproduction, because this is a weird random fact I discovered, is that the New York skyline, which came out in 2016, is still available on Lego.com. They rose the price a little bit. I think it's because they wanted it available in the flagship store in New York as well. But it's just weird how that set has lingered on way longer than most Lego sets. That's now 8 years. So it's pretty crazy. But Daniel, are you kind of in that same thought process of, was that the heyday? And do you think that they've slowed down just to kind of make sense from a production standpoint? Maybe they were overproducing during those years a little bit?
So I would delineate architecture into kind of 4 different eras, I think is how I would break it up. The first one I would say would be towers, the early stuff that
the
we
Dark
called it.
Ages.
The second one I would say would be like houses or more sprawling structures. So you've got Falling Water, Roby House, Imperial Hotel, Brandenburg Gate, kind of wider structures, things like that. Phase 3 would be skylines. And then the fourth one, which is the modern one, are these much bigger, much more substantial ones that I think we're going to get to talk about, like the Taj Mahal, Great Pyramid, Himeji Castle, some of those other ones. So I don't think it was necessarily that kind of third phase was overproduced. I think they were kind of reverting back to smaller ones. The towers were very small, but it was because they were just starting out. Houses, they started to get much bigger. Skylines, they kind of boiled it back down, but it was so they could make more of them, I think. So I think it was proportional to the number of pieces and the amount of effort that was going into each one. Now that we're getting much bigger sets, they're coming a little fewer and further between.
Basically, like 1 per year is what we're looking at kind of now. So but that being said, it's a huge, expensive set, and kind of like, would you want to spend more than a couple $100 per year on auction? I think I think you're right. That's maybe balancing out, evening out.
I think it's proportional.
Yeah, exactly. Doing some research on the theme was very eye-opening for me, because you got sort of a straight line evolution, but then there's a lot of things you think is like, well, where's that set or where's this set? And one of the things I was thinking of was like Tower Bridge or Big Ben or Sydney Opera House, or a couple of those larger sets, even like the old Taj Mahal, was made during when architecture was rising into its place. And so it's like those are notable absences. And there's other things too, which we'll get to. There's a couple on the end of the table by Garrett. What do you guys think was the strategy in having massive sculpture sets that were literally larger versions of the architecture sets being released just in that sort of same time frame? Garrett, what's your thoughts on that? Is it a good idea to have it separate, or why wasn't that included?
So I mean, price-wise, it makes more sense to have a more affordable version of such an iconic model like the Taj Mahal.
Yeah.
But if I was a collector of that kind of stuff, and I got the big large-scale creator Taj Mahal, and then they released a smaller one, way cheaper, that I would say is just as detailed and nice looking, I'd be a little upset.
Yeah.
I'd be like, well, dang. I wanted the Lego Taj Mahal, but I mean, I think it's great, to get people into the theme. Maybe somebody, I would love to have a Taj Mahal, but I can't have a 5,000 piece model.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a good and bad thing that they do that with some sets.
Yeah.
But overall, I would lean more towards you always want to make it as accessible as you can for somebody to get into a theme.
So you're preferring the architecture size and scale over the big sculptures?
I prefer the micro scale of architecture sets because then, it's a cheaper set.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, they can honestly make it more detailed at micro scaled, and it's just easier to display.
Yes, because a lot of those gigantic sculptural builds, which they haven't really done as much of in the last few years.
A lot of them, but the ones they have are giant.
Yeah.
They're huge.
Yeah, it was an interesting phase when they were dropping one of those every other year. It was pretty interesting. But Daniel, what are your thoughts on this kind of exclusion versus inclusion in the architecture theme itself? Because it seems like those would fit, but they're also, Garrett pointed out good reasons why they might not.
So from a branding perspective, it's important to keep in mind, back in this time period, this was really Lego's first attempt at marketing like a premium product oriented towards adults. I mean, this black box art and stuff, we have this all the time now, so you might not remember kind of how different that was from everything else on the store shelves, which is why they were charging more money for it. They were very kind of minimalistic, clean, polished designs. And so I think as a result, a lot of those bigger sets, they might have still been targeted towards adults just because of their price point and stuff, but I think they wanted those larger sets to feel a little more fun and approachable, as opposed to, back then they were maybe not as confident in marketing towards adults, and they might have thought that would limit the sales of those sets a little bit more, whereas they were investing a lot more into the parts and the designs that were going into these huge sets. They still wanted to kind of stick to their bread and butter of their target demographics for that, rather than putting it kind of in this little box called architecture that was really something new for the time.
Yeah, so you're thinking just the way that architecture was being created and kind of curated for a certain demographic.
Absolutely.
It made more sense to play a little more safe and make more sense.
These early architecture models were seemingly being branded for like an architect or a design person to put on their, executive desk in their office.
Yeah, exactly.
Not on their bookshelf at home.
These were Lego sets that you gave to your dad to put on his desk at work in his office.
Next to his fountain pens.
Exactly.
And his lamp with the green glass shade.
First marketed for. You put them in a Barnes & Noble for $80 and
you're Barnes & Noble, That makes sense. Yeah, that's starting to answer some questions for me, because when I look at those giant models in retrospect, it just seems confusing why they wouldn't have attached that to the architecture theme, now that the architecture is kind of a staple.
Right.
So I guess the context is key in that case.
And nowadays we're seeing some where there either was overlap or they're going back and filling it in. So like Big Ben did exist as an architecture set pretty early on, albeit not a great one.
We'll get to that later.
As well as the big one. The Taj Mahal, we had the big one, I'm pretty sure it was reissued.
Twice,
it came out twice, and then we only just got the sort of medium-sized one was branded as architecture. So some have never been architecture, some have been both, so it just depends.
Interesting, yeah. I do know that there's a couple sets which... whether it's just because of their exclusivity or the way that they were sold or marketed, they weren't in architecture, but it's like they literally seem like they should have been or could have been, and they're just not listed that way on Bricklink and in that categorization. But Daniel, you pointed out this one to me, and I remember seeing this when it first came out, but I've since forgotten about it. What is this that we're looking at?
So this was the first Lego set of the Lego house that came out, and I believe that this one came out before the Lego house was built. So the pictures on the back are renderings of the structure. So this might have been sold at like the groundbreaking ceremony or during the construction phase if there was a temporary visitors center or something like that. And it was later replaced with this one, which has the colors on the roof, which more people would recognize and is still currently available. So this one is branded as an architecture set, which is kind of odd because it's really generally only sold at Lego House, or I think briefly they might have had a thing where you could buy it on Lego.com.
Yeah, I think it's still pretty much you go to Billund to get it kind of a thing. Yeah,
so. But if you go to Billund, all the other Lego House sets are branded as Lego House. They have Lego House on the front, and they say like Home of the Brick on the side and stuff like that. So it's a little weird that this one's an architecture set, whereas this one, which was a more limited release, it's all white, it's a little more clean looking. This one was not branded as architecture. This one was branded as special edition. which is something I have
Interesting.
seen on a few other things, like the Bill and Airport, I know is special edition. A lot of the sets for factory campuses, the different factory campus sets that come out are usually special editions, so that one's kind of a weirder branding, but this one just feels more like an architecture set than
It's
this
exactly the right scale. It's
Yeah.
low color, very sophisticated and clean looking.
one.
Yeah.
It does come with a minifig, which is a little different, so
A bit weird.
yeah. I think Lego House has kind of finally settled into a formula, but there were some kind of odd ones there in the middle.
Exploration and branding. Yeah.
Yes,
exactly.
yeah, for sure.
And there's one other one, Daniel, I think that's also from your collection.
Yeah, we
is-
want to just do some
yeah.
special show and tell.
Let's do this really quick while we're on the subject
So-
of sets that probably should have. Oh, this is architecture.
This
yeah.
one's even more extremely limited release. So
Yeah.
this was, to my understanding, only given out to Lego employee. It was an employee gift, but only ones at corporate headquarters. Whereas the
Oh, wow.
standard employee gifts are given out to any, I think, full-time employee who works at a Lego retail store. This one was, you mostly only see these in Denmark or the nearby surrounding countries because they're people who worked over there. But yet this one's branded as architecture. So, any architecture completionist is probably tearing their hair out because this is not a very affordable set, I would
No,
say.
hard to find at
Hard
the
to
very
find,
least. Yes.
It's one that I like a lot and fell in love with, which is why I had to break down and buy it because I think it's a fantastic set. But from a branding perspective, it's kind of an odd choice.
Yes, that is that puts a little bit of a damper on anyone trying to be 100% on all architecture sets for their
Yeah,
collection. It's
definitely,
it makes it
definitely.
difficult. So.
So no, that's part of the private collection, not for sale.
And I also remember back in the day when I went over to made the pilgrimage to Billund and all that, I flew out through the Billund Airport, which means I could get
Yep.
to the Billund Airport set. I got 2 of them. I sold both of them at the store for a massive profit.
I'm sure.
I kind of wish I had saved one because it's cool, but I'm not too worried about it. I don't collect architecture as much. We'll get into that.
It's
in a
just an
minute.
excuse to make another trip.
Exactly. Yeah. Next time.
That's
Yeah.
right.
I think are they still available? Or are they kind of winding those down now? Because I heard somebody's like
I
eventually.
don't know because I haven't.
It's
ever
been a
actually
while. That
flown
was in
into Billund.
2018, and that was a number of years ago now. So they might be winding down production on those. But
Yeah.
while we're on the subject of like things that we've gone out of our way to collect, you already talked about collecting Skylines, Garrett. But is there
Yes.
do you have all the architecture sets, or you have most of the architecture sets? What's your?
Do not have all of them, nor is this a line that I would ever try to complete. Because, I mean, some of those Skylines, they are very minuscule, but their prices don't reflect that.
Yeah. Yes.
I have a couple of the Skylines. I have, Tokyo's one of my favorites. I have the Venice one, which is one back from when I was around 14. I managed to keep that one. That one's one that's gone up a lot just because of a printed brick.
Yep.
I think you know the brick I'm talking about.
We've talked about that on a rare parts
Yep.
video, I think. Yeah. So.
We have, yeah. I should have brought that in here.
So I have 2 of the Great Pyramids of Giza. Really great set. And I think the next one I'm after is Hajime Castle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you were telling us about this before the video, Garrett. Did you combine those pyramids to make a
I did.
complete pyramid?
Because they very much could have made it a full pyramid. It would have been, another $100. But
Or half the size.
or half the size. But the scale they went with, you have the option, it comes with extra pins to just pin 2 sets together back to back. But that's kind of boring. So there is an alternate model you can find online that completely rearranges the layout and makes it, the full pyramid with surrounding city and Nile River
Makes it
that
so you don't
goes
have
around
2
it.
Nile rivers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's a lot better. That's one of my favorite display models I have.
Yeah.
There you go.
And the fact that you can take the the shell of the pyramid off and see the construction of it and the tombs inside,
All the
it's a very
tunnels.
detailed set.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Super neat.
When that set first released, I was pretty disappointed with the fact that it was half a pyramid. I would have
Yep.
even taken half the size if it was a full pyramid.
It does
but-
make it really nice if you only want half of it. It makes it easy to butt up against the wall,
Put up on
and
a
it looks
shelf,
good.
yeah.
That's true. That's true. Well,
That set does, though, it unfortunately has had a myriad of issues when
Really?
it comes to packaging.
Interesting. So, like missing pieces and stuff?
So when I bought the set back in 2022, I opened it up and was excited to go ahead and build it on, I think it was like the day after Christmas. Had the instructions for Optimus Prime in it.
That's right. I
And
remember
that's
that
happened
happening.
to a couple other people that I've seen.
Yeah.
And just recently I saw somebody was building the set. and they had a single extra piece left over that is not included in the set.
Mm-hmm.
They had an alien ray gun included in the pyramid set.
Huh.
That's a fun little Easter egg.
That's a conspiracy. The
So,
aliens built the pyramids, man.
But it's a great set. That is a really good one.
That's funny. Some little hidden details about that.
You just make it Optimus Prime
You
instructions.
sure that wasn't an April Fool's post?
That's funny. That's great. So Daniel, I think that having a big interest in microscale building, especially mocks, how do you feel about collecting architecture? Obviously, you have a couple here on the table that are yours, but have you gone for most of them? Are you some more selective about it? What are some of your favorites there?
You would think I would be big into them. However, I guess it's just been ingrained in my head since I was young that they were just overpriced for what you were getting. So I really only have 3.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is the Lego house one here, because I like, Lego history and Lego company-related things.
Yeah.
One of them is this one, which was a recent acquisition, the Lego Campus HQ. And then the only other one that I have is the Little Big Ben, which I will constantly trash as basically one of the worst architecture sets they've made. I don't like it. I don't know why I still have it.
Yeah, some of those early architectures are better achieved than others. And I think, Garrett, in one of we were listing out some of the sets that we liked.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was the Burj Khalifa, which is...
Yes.
Can you tell us about the interesting details about that one version of it?
I don't know if I wrote it down. I think
you got the stats for it?
I think there's 3 different versions of it.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. I do remember for a while it was like, again?
Yeah.
So there is the Burj Khalifa from 2011. There is I want to say that one is the second version, which is 2015, I think, which is another standalone. And then there's the one that's included in the Dubai skyline.
Gotcha. So there's 3 buildable versions.
But the one from 2011 is one of those infamous first architecture sets. It is 208 pieces. I have to imagine it was probably around the $70 range.
Yep.
And 112 of those parts are light bluish gray cylinders.
Yeah. Just the one-by-ones, yeah.
Hey, if you've never bought an architecture set, you probably have this set in your bulk break.
Yeah.
You can probably build this set right now.
So if you just have a decent-sized Lego collection, you can source the parts from at home.
That was one I was
right
looking
now.
through the parts list for, because I remember always seeing that one and being like, that's an ugly-looking architecture set. It is literally just cylinders. And yeah, over half the set is cylinders.
Wow.
I think the second version was a little smoother.
Way
cylinders,
better,
yeah, a little
way
bigger.
better. And that one was like this big. It was tall.
That was like a 1.5 feet tall, yeah.
I remember getting that one when I was like 15 or 16.
Gotcha.
It's always been my problem with the cylinder pieces that you can't stack them without all those little unsightly grooves in them.
Yeah, is it grooves? Yeah, it's grooves. That in order to remove the bricks and not get them stuck. Yeah.
Well, and so you can put it
Screw mark.
between 4 studs.
Yeah.
Too.
Absolutely, but yeah, that's a fun story there. But we did compile a list, each of us, of our 3 favorite sets. You may as well or not 3 favorite. My 3 favorite sets, your 4 favorite sets, and your 5 or 6. But that was one of yours, Garrett.
That was one of my favorites. Just for over half of this set's pieces is one singular part. Which I can't think of another set that is like that.
Yeah.
That includes over half of its inventory is one single part.
Well, while you're on the subject, Garrett, what are some of the other ones from your favorites?
So I do want to make a honorable mention for one of my favorite architecture sets, because technically it's not an architecture set.
Okay.
But it very much is an architecture set, and is I would say the largest architecture set is the Colosseum. It is a phenomenal set. It is in pretty much the same scale as all these other large scale, like the pyramid, the Taj Mahal. It's maybe a little bigger, but it's the micro scale portion of it. It is architecture scaled.
And it's an icon of architecture as well, if you think about it. Though.
I mean, it is a beautiful model. It is. It looks so good. That's probably if that was architecture, that might be my absolute favorite one. But that's technically a Lego icon set.
Yeah. Again, one of those which could have made sense as an architecture.
They could have branded
They're still doing it.
They very much could have branded that as architecture. I don't know why they didn't.
Well, icons is cool too, so...
Yeah. But actually on the list, I would have to say the Sydney Opera House is a really good one. That is set 21012. It is 270 parts. It was one of the first, or not one of the first, but it was an early architecture set.
And again, this is the small one, not the
Not the big one.
Yeah.
The actual architecture one.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, only around that big, but just the way they, get those angled slope pieces up to make the roofs, for the time, it was a really cool design, and I do still like that one. That's one, I may get one day, but it's not, like, high on the list. But out of all of them, that is one that stands out to me.
Yeah. With a big Lego room and lots of extra cash, that would be one you
That's
collect,
not one that I think would be a showstopper. Somebody walks into your collection and goes, whoa! But once they looked over the shelf, that's a nice model.
Yeah, I like that one. There you go.
That's good.
You want to go through the rest of this? We could take turns.
We could do round robin, or we could run them.
I like round robin. What's the one you want to talk about, Daniel?
I'll just go in order. The first one I wrote down was Roby House. So this is the another Frank Lloyd Wright house. This is the dark red, kind of sprawling ranch style, craftsman style house.
A lot of dark red.
A lot of dark red, and I didn't look at the exact percentage of parts, but a lot of them are 1x2 plates that are stacked in an alternating pattern to make it look like brickwork for the walls, which must be a pain to build. And the only reason they did this is because this was prior to the advent of the masonry brick, which is textured to look like bricks. So I'm sure half of the build process of this set is just stacking 1x2 plates, because they're pretty chunky wall sections, and it's all made out of plates, which is nice that Lego's willing to put that number of parts into something for the sake of just texture, basically.
Yeah, a very minimal texture.
They would never do that outside of architecture in a million years.
Yeah, Lego tries to be pretty part efficient, especially with bigger builds. They can kind of not cut corners, but make it more ergonomical. Yeah. And so that's something you never see anymore. So.
They could have just as easily built it out of bricks, because typically in Lego's design language in their head, if you're doing something that doesn't have any grooves or texture to it, bricks are essentially the same as stacked plates, but they actually went to the effort to do that so that it looked kind of like brickwork.
Yeah, that's interesting set for sure.
Yeah.
I only had 3, but I'll mention my first one, and this is the Statue of Liberty. It's a very nice architecture set. I think it's well priced. It's a great display model, easy to present on a shelf. But there's one Achilles heel for me. I know this isn't for everybody.
Or Achilles face.
Achilles face. And it's actually especially poignant because it's Nexa. It's just a Nexagon shield here, and it's not a bad look. However, it's an easy fix to just quickly remove this piece, and you can easily add a little jumper and a cheese slope and a tile, and voila, it's a perfect Statue of Liberty nose.
I like her just like that.
You like just the studs on the base?
I liked it without that plate on there.
Oh, you liked it without the plate?
Oh, with it, just the snot breaks as her eyes.
We're getting more and more
crazy. Yeah, look at there.
Anyway,
she got spooked by something.
They did this because they thought the shield looked the best, but at the same time, I really prefer it with the slight modifications. But I do think this is a great set, and I do think it's a good value for the amount of parts you're getting, unlike some architecture sets, especially the earlier ones. But yeah, what do you guys think about this one?
This one's a contentious topic for people I know, but I really don't hate the shield for the face. I think it's kind of a nice artistic interpretation of it. And I think it works well with the rest of the way the model's designed. I mean, she's got a lot of these cut angles to kind of reflect the
shape,
the folds in her dress and things like that. And the plinth that she's standing on is just outstanding. The amount of detail and parts that went into that is just fantastic. This is a great set.
Yeah. Garrett, is the Nexo Knight Shield cursed or not cursed?
I love it.
You love it?
Yep. I'm one of the few.
I'm outvoted. What is happening here?
I'm one of the few that I think the Nexo Knight face looks great. Like you said, I mean, a lot of the angles on the body match the way that they tried to do that face, and I think trying to get too detailed with it can make it look bad.
You're
I'm
very
sure
right.
they tried. I'm sure they had a number of ones and they voted.
So I do really like that. I also love the hairpiece for the flame.
That's fun.
And another cool thing, set exclusive sand green handcuffs.
Ooh, yeah.
So cool parts in this set.
Very interesting. Yeah. I think you do have a really good point there, Garrett. You can get Uncanny Valley very quickly with a human face. And
putting just a nose, I think, would look weird. I think putting just eyes would look weird. So I think just having the flat face is the best of everything you can do.
It's simplified, and you can kind of then mentally project that expression.
I think a lot of the other parts of the set make up for that.
Yeah, exactly. All the other details will catch your eye first, I think, yeah. Well, outvoted, but I think we all agree it's a good set.
We're going to get flamed in the comments. We're going to all be discredited as Lego fans.
Well, what's funny is there'll be two sides. Let us know in the comments. Is this Nexo Shield on Statue of Liberty face good or bad? Because we have, I think I'm outvoted here, but we'll see in the comments. But So Garrett, want to bring up another one of your favorites real quick?
Yeah, so I talked about it earlier, but another one of my favorites is the Tokyo skyline.
Mm-hmm.
I love the way that set looks. I think it may be one of the best skylines just for the amount of color that's in the set.
Exactly.
It is a very vibrant set, and I love I think it's Tokyo Tower, the big red tower.
Mm-hmm.
The way that's built, if you've ever built the which one is it? The Sydney Skyline.
Yeah.
That tower, the Sydney Tower, is a lot of the same building techniques, using those flexible tubes to make like struts that go up and bend.
Mm-hmm.
So Tokyo Tower's got a lot of cool builds in that, and I love the fact that Mount Fuji is just peeking through the background of Tokyo.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But that set also comes with a lot of cool printed tiles to make a lot of the neon lights on the skyscrapers.
Yeah, that's right.
And so you have like, what is that street called? It's like the really famous giant crosswalk in Japan.
Yeah, it's like their version of Times Square.
Kinda, but you have like these like 5 or 6 little like skyscrapers that are like that big around this crosswalk, and they all have like unique prints on them, and it looks so cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's neat.
So they've really done a great job capturing a lot of really essential Tokyo elements,
I feel
but
like
the color.
a lot of the skylines are gray and drab, and because it's a city skyline. I mean, there's not a lot of color going on in city skylines a lot of the time. They're gray skyscrapers. But the Tokyo set, I mean, you have a red and white tower, you have a blue mountain in the background, you have neon like skyscrapers in the front, you've got a weird upside down pyramid building off to the side. There's a lot of cool stuff in that set.
Yeah, that one, if I had expanded my list, that would also be on it, because it's a really cool set. So.
And it's interesting that they included Mount Fuji, because that is notably not a piece of architecture.
Yeah.
But I think it kind of probably led Lego to branch more into things like how they're doing like the postcard sets and things now. Which...
That very much is just, that's so ingrained in the Tokyo skyline.
Yes.
You can see it looks like one of the buildings there.
Yeah.
Another
cool
thing that's cool about that, I don't know if you know, you need to know. If not, there are little tiles of crosswalks, micro-scale crosswalks in that set.
Huh.
I think they're 1x1 or 1x2 tiles with white lines printed on them.
I think I have some of those. Yeah, the light gray with the white lines. Yeah, I've used them for a handful of different things.
That set has really good pieces for like micro-scale mock building.
And those are printed, right? Or are they
There's no stickers in architecture sets, to my knowledge, ever.
Yeah.
Not that I know of. Yeah.
I've never encountered an architecture set with stickers.
Yeah, that's nice to get the 18 plus every now and then.
We're not going to
I think those are printed too.
Okay,
Those are
okay.
probably printed.
If they're branding it as architecture, I would assume they'll print everything.
Yeah, I think that holds true.
I don't think you're going to burst it open and figure out, but...
Oh, it's already open.
Oh, it's already open.
It's already
Okay.
open.
Let's hit those
Yeah.
thumb holes.
Exactly.
I haven't built it, but it is open.
That's good. That takes the pressure off of you then. That's good. But yeah, so Daniel, what's the next one on your list you want to talk about real quick?
I probably would say this one. I mean, obviously, if I bought it, I like it.
Yeah.
So it's just very cool. It's just something you're not going to see every day. But I really like the building itself. It's very cool how Lego, they did it with Lego House, and they've done it with their new headquarters, how they make a building, look like it's at least artistically made out of different Lego components, and there's different things incorporated in it. If you've ever been to the headquarters or anything, I mean, it's like finding hidden Mickeys at Disney. Like, there'll be windows that are, like steel panels that have shapes cut out of them, but it will be like in the proportions of 4 Lego tubes.
Yeah, a 2x2.
The big tube in the center, and there's like this big fountain on the corner of the campus that looks like it's kind of all like 2x2 things with circles in it. So it's very fun as a Lego fan. Again, like I said, it's very similar to finding hidden Mickeys at Disney World. So that's a very cool aspect of it, and just the way that it's built, made to look like it's made out of Lego, of course, lends itself to being made as a Lego set.
Yeah.
So it was a no-brainer, and it's a fantastic set. So maybe if I ever have to sub in on Joy of Building again or something, we can do that.
That'd be a pretty special Joy building.
Yeah,
That'd be fun.
yeah.
But have you been outside that building?
I have.
Yes.
I've not been inside this one. I have been in and around this one. I've only been outside of this one.
Yeah.
You really got to know somebody to get on
Yeah,
this one.
they don't
There's a
do-
lot more secrets in there.
They don't do tours of that on a regular basis. They might film a video inside every now and then, but not tours. Yeah. What do you think of that one, Garrett? Is that something that you'd eventually want to collect if you had?
No.
Once you make your first million? No.
I mean, if I had if money wasn't an option, sure, because it is it looks great. It is very unique looking. But I didn't know about this set until like a couple days ago.
Yeah. So
I was looking through the architecture list and I was like, wait, what is that? Huh?
It's not high on your list.
Not high on my list, but like it's very unique. I mean, just for that aspect of it, that I mean, you'll never see one of these really.
Yeah,
it's a really cool set.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, I'll move us right along to our next featured set. This is going to be Falling Water, which, I mean, if you think about Lego architecture, this is actually probably in your top 3 that you're thinking of. It's Frank Lloyd Wright. I just love how this very unique and iconic building is kind of seamlessly integrated into nature. Just kind of fits on that cliffside with that water, and it's a really cool look. I've never been to the building. I would love to make it one day and be able to see it, but it's an all right execution. This is back in the early days when they were very simplified. Early. Those trees are not great, but you still it's just enough to convey the information that it needs to. So I like this build. It's also pretty collectible. I like kind of sets that have gone up a little bit. It's like, oh, that's a desirable set. It's worth having on your shelf. So that's one of my inclusions. But obviously, Daniel, you've had some Frank Lloyd Wright on your list already. But is this one that you like as well?
Yes, this is one I like a lot. This one was on my list as well. This is also the one that I probably want the most right now. Out of any architecture set, this one's probably top of my list of ones to acquire because I grew up loving Frank Lloyd Wright architecture and things like that. So this is still a good execution. I think it's one that I wish they would remake, mostly so that it would be more affordable.
Yeah.
But I don't think they will because I don't think it would change that much. I don't think in terms of this style of building, the newer parts catalog would really change anything too drastically.
Yeah.
So I think it's not likely that Lego will remake it as much as I wish they would. But, that's just kind of Frank Lloyd Wright's style of architectures. It's lots of very straight lines and things. So it lent itself well early on to being made as architecture sets, which is why they did several of his buildings, including this, Roby House, the Guggenheim. A lot of those were some of those early ones because it just works well. So
yeah,
it's one I'll eventually hope to get, but it's only getting worse in price.
Yeah, it keeps creeping up a little bit. Yeah. I think you were right about the architectural style, though. It's just tiles and bricks is all that's really needed to make that make sense.
The style is very horizontal. One.
Now, Garrett, are you a fan of Frank Lloyd Wright as well? Or
I do really like the architecture of a lot of his stuff. Now, this set I don't like.
Oh, okay.
I think this set...
I can see why.
So, okay, what do we have here? We have, this is the 2012 micro-scale Hogwarts. I mean, it's just...
the alternate build is Hogwarts,
It's accurate to the design. I feel it's just very flat, the color of it, being so much tan.
It's a lot of tan.
And one thing that drives me crazy about this set, other than it's just absurdly priced, but another reason I'll never get it, it sticks out like a sore thumb from all the other architecture sets. There's no black display base.
That's true.
And your name tile is on the building in tan, which I like and don't.
It's hard to see.
It's hard to see. I like how kind of seamless it is integrated in, but putting that next to other architecture sets, it doesn't look like it's in the same theme.
Yeah, that's
it
fair.
breaks it up.
Yeah.
I would have liked to see them remake this, and I think there's a lot of opportunities to modify this a lot better with the new parts catalog. It is a lot of plates and tiles, but I feel like modern Lego design could do this a little more justice.
Yeah,
that's fair.
They could probably expand the color palette in the landscape, especially. So I think that there could be some improvements there. A nice frame around it.
I'd like to see some light green in the scenery around the house. I'd like to see, I don't like seeing clear tiles for water.
Yeah, that could be executed better now, I think.
But, I mean, it's a good set, but this is not one I would hunt out and and try to get to complete a collection. I would skip over this one.
Pretty easily. Okay, that's good to know, Garrett. I don't think you're going to get too harshly criticized for that either. I think there's some understanding there.
It's a good set. I get why people love it.
This is an early architecture set, and you can tell pretty quickly at a glance. So yeah.
Well, and I think a lot of those early ones were made to look more like architectural models than realistic microscale interpretations of the buildings, which is why, like you mentioned, a lot of the color palette is flat. They're not mixing in other colors to look like
This reminds me a lot of Modulex.
Yeah.
This set in particular.
And architecture has a lot of roots grounded in Modulex. If you're not familiar with that, it was an early building system from the 70s?
Late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah. It was a smaller parts
Smaller scale.
The parts were smaller, but it was targeted towards actual architects to build architectural models and designs and things and do city planning.
The bricks were meant to be
like
cut and glued.
Oh yeah, yep.
That still boggles
And
my
that's
mind.
part of, like, this set using a base plate is throwing me off and really giving me that kind of like mashed together Modulex vibe.
It is a little odd in that sense, but it could easily be adapted.
But that
I think
also,
if you wanted to bring it in line with the rest.
All the points I'm making also make this set more unique.
For
So-
sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
That's true. Yeah, I think I can see where you're coming from though, Garrett. And yeah, the Modulex vibe is coming through a little bit for sure. So that's something we haven't talked about at all, Modulex, but it is adjacent and ancestor of this theme. I think
It's a fantastic deep dive. If you don't know much about Modulex, go do some research.
Yeah, we'll do a video on that one day
One
once
day,
we get a little more in hand to actually show you guys.
Oh, I have some. I could bring
Oh,
some.
hey, next time.
We'll have to make a sign.
Yeah, but Garrett, having dunked on Falling Water, is there another set that you'd like to point out as a better option for people wanting to collect these?
Yeah, I do actually. So,
In a nice way, you were
yeah.
polite about it. Yeah. So.
no, one of my like favorite standalone buildings, other than like I love the skylines, but like standalone buildings. That's another early one's the Flatiron building.
Yes.
And that is a set 21023. It's 471 pieces. It's larger than a lot of just like the towers or standalone buildings. But the Flatiron building, I've never gone up to New York and got to see it or anything. But just the style of that building, it is so uniquely shaped, and I think they did a really good job capturing that in the Lego set. And it's kind of one of those that like you look at it one way and it's a bit weird, and you turn it, oh, that's a cool building. So it's just one of those that I have a connection to that building. I really love the design of it. Really want to go see it one day. So for me personally, that's a really good architecture set in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure.
There's just a lot of history with that building too.
Exactly. Older kind of New York style buildings have quite a charm to them.
Yeah.
So and that one has a particularly unique feature of how thin it is and how unusual that appearance is. So.
An optical illusion.
Exactly. Now I haven't seen it. I've been through New York City, but never stopped to look at anything more than the highway. So I should probably at some point. But we'll make a road trip this summer.
There are several Flatiron buildings in different cities. I mean, this is the Flatiron building, but there are a few different ones you can go see.
Yeah. And then, Daniel, you got anything else on your list? I got a couple more myself.
My next one is the Great Pyramid, which we already talked about a little bit earlier, but this one I think is significant because it's what I would consider the benchmark for what kind of ushered in this modern era of larger sets, because it's one that I think a lot of people assumed that they would never make, because the pyramid is, today, a big tan pyramid, and there's not much to it.
Yeah,
so
rock,
the decision that they went with to make it look like the pyramid originally did, with the white and the gold cap, and you've got some lush greenery and the river and stuff around it, was a really good move to be able to make this one. Now the sort of medium-sized Taj Mahal was also I think kind of in the modern era, but it was something we had already seen once before at a different scale. So the Great Pyramid, I think, was kind of that benchmark one for saying, okay, we're doing something new. This is kind of the direction we're going with these much bigger, much more fleshed out sets, kind of departing from the skylines that they were kind of engraved
For
in.
sure. Yeah. And we talked about this a little bit already in this video, but I was really excited about this, and then it was half a pyramid, and I still haven't gotten it. I'll do what Garrett did, because I think that's the best solution.
It's the best way.
So.
All you need is 2 sets, and there's a full, completely unique instruction model for it.
Yeah.
And it looks great. I would say, like, if you're wanting to get into architecture and you like the pyramid, get it. That is, like, a great, like, starter to the theme of architecture, because you get a great model, it's a great build, and you can get it right now. It's available.
Yeah.
It's not one of those that's insanely priced.
Yeah,
Now,
like Falling Water.
Will it one day? Based on architecture trends, there's a good chance.
It's kind of upscale value. Yeah.
This like modern wave of architecture, I think, has become more accessible to a lot of people.
I think so.
It's a different style box now too. Like they've always had kind of this like icons banner on the bottom, but now like the pyramids is colored, and New Ujimi Castles has a color to it. It's not just like a full black box anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like maybe people are looking at it as not as much of a premium product now. It's not exclusively for old dudes in office buildings
That drive Volvos. Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's good.
Well, and it's showing that gap is closing between what they're willing to brand as an architecture set versus what they're willing to brand as icons, creator expert, whatever they've done throughout the years for those bigger ones like Big Ben. As far as I know, the Pyramid is probably the one that's come in the biggest box
so far.
That's an architecture set. So that gap is closing, and it's going to be interesting to see if in the future they continue to brand things like the Colosseum and the Eiffel Tower as icons, or if they will start to call them architecture.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I'm really excited to see ancient history represented, because this isn't the pyramids that we see now. It's in its heyday, in its glory days back 3,000 years ago, or more than that. I'm not for sure, but yeah, it's going to be awesome to see what kind of more ancient or medieval history we can see represented in.
Well, even the newest model, Hajime Castle, is
medieval.
It's based not as how it looks now, but more as like how it would have looked when it was an actual castle being defended. There's that. I remember seeing some people were complaining that there weren't enough pieces for that set to make all the trees cherry blossoms. But when you look at actual pictures of the castle, there's only one cherry blossom tree on the property. So that was a deliberate to only include that amount of it. I was
realistic choice, yeah.
And that's the stuff I like about architecture sets, is that kind of detail. Like, it's nobody would ever notice, but that's cool.
Yeah. The last one I have on my list of favorite architecture sets is the newer Taj Mahal architecture set, not the big one, but it was. Is it retired now, or is it still current? Because I feel like that's on its way out if it hasn't already.
If it's not retired, it retires the end of this year.
Yeah. So, but great set, great colors for a building that is mostly white. So, amazing details, textures, and a really great value for parts. There's tons of tiles and little elements in there. It's just a really good set. I've never seen the Taj Mahal. My brother-in-law is from India, and my sister and him went to go visit it and had a great time, and I'm very jealous, but one day I'll make it and see it. But it's a super cool architecture as well, so
Nice.
Yeah,
I think that is a really good one. It's one I need to get.
Yeah,
it's one I've kind of avoided, but now that I've gotten more of these modern architecture sets, I do want to get that. It is a nice looking model.
I think I need to get it just for the parts, if not for the model itself, because it's just a really good set. But do you guys still have a couple more on your list, though,
I've just got one left.
I've got one more.
All right, let's do it. So, who wants to go next, Garrett?
So I already talked about our funny Burj Khalifa, so I won't talk about that again. But I will talk more in depth about the Venice skyline. And so that is set 21026. It is 212 pieces. It's a very tiny skyline set. Not a whole lot going. I think there's only 2 buildings in that skyline, like 2 tall buildings, and the rest is you have like a bridge over the canal, and you have. It's not a whole lot of building, but that was one of the first.
You've got Spider-Man.
Yeah, Spider-Man, Indiana
Hydra
Jones,
Man, Indiana Jones with the boats.
So
the big lava monster thing.
You can recreate
James
a lot
Bond,
of scenes with that skyline, but that was one of the first. Like, I know I had built with other stuff before, but that was one of the first times I remember seeing like sand green like really vividly and being like, oh, this is a really nice color. So it sticks out for me in that it's got a great color scheme of sand green, white, and brown, or like reddish brown.
Yeah,
it looks really nice. It's a very low profile one. So that's one you could have on a desk, and like people really wouldn't know it's a Lego model. It just looks like a architectural model. But that one holds a special place for me because that's the only one that I've managed to keep like from when I was 14. So that one's been with me forever.
Yeah, that's like one of your oldest Lego sets you still have.
Pretty
intact.
much.
Yeah.
The only thing I have older than that's a SpongeBob minifig. So.
Nice.
Also equally important.
Yes,
so, yeah.
yes.
But it's interesting that you mentioned that it's not so much of a skyline as it is a small selection of small buildings.
It's very much more like focused on how like quaint Venice kind of is, and there's not a lot of like large scale to anything to destroy the skyline there. It's very much based just on showing off, you have the canal there, and there's a couple little buildings, and there you are. That's it.
Yeah, it's an ancient and beautiful city. So ancient it's falling into the sea.
Right. Well, I feel like a lot of, like the Shanghai set, I really like Shanghai, China, but that one I don't like because you have like a little tiny building on one end of it, and then on the very other end of it, you have a building that is like this.
Super tall.
Imbalanced.
Yeah, and to me, that doesn't make for a good skyline. So the Venice one being such a shallow one, and really being the only one that is like that, makes it very unique in my opinion.
It's very interesting. Yeah, and then great color scheme, like you
Yep,
said. So.
and that one has gone up crazy in price. I think it's like $250, $300 now, which is wild for 212 pieces.
And not all of them are rare pieces. A lot of those are fairly common, bricks and plates and whatever. So yeah, it's
The
interesting.
thing with architecture is like those nameplates, and you get cool prints. Like they make great prints for micro scale stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And so like that's what always drives the prices of them up.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you have it now, so you
Yep.
don't have to collect it
Right.
now.
That's one if I didn't have, I don't know if I'd go and hunt it.
you wouldn't even bother. Yeah.
It's a great looking one, but the price of it it's
Yeah.
wild.
They've gotten collectible, which means they're desirable and people like
And
it.
that's, sometimes that's what makes somebody go get one, is
Yeah.
that it is so desirable and collectible. You wait a couple of years, it may go up even more. Who
I get a
knows?
little bit of that too, because when I see that big collectible set, I'm like, oh yeah,
Yeah,
like
right.
the hunter with the hat, just trying to get the big game hunter in me wants to get
Lego
it. So.
season.
Yeah, exactly. It's expensive Lego set time. No. like Daniel with his campus set over here. Yeah, a little bit. What's the last one you want to talk about, Daniel?
The last one I have is the Himeji Castle. So this was a recent one. I just like this one because I think it's just really nice aesthetically. It's got a great color palette. You've got that kind of dark tan, white, dark gray color scheme going on, which I think works really well for this. They introduced some new molds for this set. Those kind of corner
That's
pagoda
right. Yeah.
roof
I
tiles
forgot about
were new
that.
for that.
Very
So
fancy, yeah.
I can't say for certain whether in the past or not they've ever introduced new molds for architecture sets, but I think this is really promising for the future of this wave of architecture sets. I think this is showing a lot of good factors in terms of design, color balance, source material, things like that.
Yeah,
So
great step in the right direction.
yeah, I think it's fantastic.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited to see the word castle in an architecture set because
Yeah.
this is opening the door for so many cool
Yep.
things that I'd be
Yep.
really interested in. This is a cool set. I'd love to get it at some point, but I've got other things too on my list. But yeah. And then Garrett, you said like details about the one cherry tree and other
Yep.
things like that. So that's interesting.
It's a really cool set. It's one I need to get. I love anime and Japanese culture and whatever. So I've got the Tokyo set on my manga shelf, and
Yep.
would love to have the Hajime Castle on the bottom.
Yeah.
So I need to get that at some point, and
It fits your vibe.
it's a really good one. There's new pieces you can open up. It's one of the few architecture sets that like the pyramid. You can open it up and there's micro scale like hallways like throughout it, and there's
Yeah.
like
Details.
a dining room in there. So like there's cool little things like that.
This one had something in
Yeah,
Yeah, that
yeah,
one
it has
does.
like the staircase
There you
and
go.
the tree.
Mm-hmm. But
Looks
it's like
just like it.
the pyramid. You open that up, and on the whole backside of it, there are all down it. There are little like hallways and tombs
Passageways,
that lead
yeah.
to nowhere.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
Just like a real pyramid. So I'm glad they're starting to do that kind of stuff.
Mhm. That's awesome. But talking about like opening the door for
Yes.
future projects, one of the things I have to talk about here is our dream architecture sets. So
That was a good segue, Mark. That was good.
thank you, Dan.
It's a solid 9 out of
that's
10.
good. I'm trying to get this flowing in the right direction here. But so we've talked about how much we like certain elements of certain sets, or we might have a little problem with some sets. What's one set that would be perfect for you, day one, instant buy? Do you have any architectural pieces that they haven't covered or need to cover again? Like, for example, Daniel, you like Falling Water, but you'd like maybe see an updated price point for that? Any of those
Yeah.
strike you? I have one that's like burning on the tip of my tongue, the Parthenon.
You took mine.
Okay, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Garrett, but this is one that I think would both
Yeah.
be interested in. It's an amazing classical Greek sculpture, and it's oh man, you could do it as it was or as it is now in its dilapidated state.
Just a
but
large scale. I mean, that would be cool.
like at least is the size of the castle, or not quite as big as the pyramid. It's not as big a building,
Yeah.
but I think that'd be just totally sick to see that because. Greek and Roman architecture is fairly unexplored. I mean, the Colosseum is an exception,
Yep.
but that would be amazing. So, anything like that striking you guys?
Well, so what's interesting is I wrote down a handful. So one of the other ones I wrote down was Petra. And so Petra and the Parthenon were both included in very, very small scale as part of the World of Wonders gift with purchase or whatever.
Wonder of the World.
That was,
Well,
World of
they're
Wonders.
they're
Redeemable.
usually called the Wonders of the World, but I
Yeah,
think the gift
yeah.
with purchase was like flipped for some reason. I don't know if
And
somebody
you
has
can
a
get it through
trademark on
points.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was what? The Parthenon, Petra,
Taj
the
Mahal.
Great Wall of China, and the Taj Mahal.
Yeah.
So two of them were things we had gotten before, and two of them were something new, but really kind of wanted it a little bit bigger of a scale,
Maybe,
I think.
4 times the size of that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So in writing a handful of these down, a lot of the ones that I wrote down were so Sagrada Familia, which is in Spain, Notre Dame in Paris, and then St. Basil's Cathedral in Russia. And I realized they're all churches.
Yep.
And Lego will not touch a church with a
10-foot pole,
49.5-foot pole. So unfortunately, I don't think we'll ever get those as great staples of architecture as they are. They're and lots of architecture has its roots grounded in religion, but there is a line I think that Lego.
There's a
will
light
draw.
at the end of the tunnel for that, Daniel, because we're getting Lego Twilight, so we might get Lego the Vatican.
So keeping the conversation relevant. Again, there's a line. Like, obviously, pyramids were, religious structures, but way, way longer ago. It's not as currently topical. So, some of the other ones that I wrote down that were maybe a little more realistic would be Mount Rushmore, if they can ever figure out how to do human faces.
That would be a really cool one if they did it.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's one that would kind of be like the Ideas phone booth they just did. It's a very limited market.
Potentially, but I mean, lots of them have been specific to the U.S. or specific to other countries, but they've still sold well. So
that one would be cool.
Who knows if they would do it? And then, in keeping with Frank Lloyd Wright architecture, Taliesin or Taliesin West would be another one of his popular houses that I would love to see them interpret.
That's an easy next step for them if they've already done a couple of his.
I don't know if they had like some branding or something they had to negotiate intellectual property wise or with the estate of Frank Lloyd Wright to get that, and maybe that's why they kind of all happened together and then kind of got cut off. So I don't know if they would ever open that door back up again or not.
They've made the Guggenheim museum a couple times.
Twice,
so,
I think.
Yeah, so that could be. It's maybe not as impossible as some licensing, like Zelda, for example. But we're finally getting that though. But yeah, I think there's so much yet to explore, and I hope that architecture continues at least a set per year for a while. We'll see, or at least the legacy of architecture continues on in things like icons.
Well, that's something I kind of wanted to bring up before we headed out. Is we are getting the largest architecture set ever this year. It is going to be 4,300 pieces.
So as of filming this, that's a rumor.
As of filming this, that is a rumor. We don't know what it is. All we know that it is going to be the architecture set for 2024, and we have a piece count.
Yeah.
And I wanted
big piece count.
I wanted to get some ideas. What do you guys think this is going to be?
The Parthenon.
It is the largest scale architecture set we've ever gotten. Up until now, New Hajime Castle was the largest, and that was what 2,200.
So this is double.
It was a lot. Yeah, it was a lot.
Double
less.
the parts
what
count.
Was the, wait, what
probably
was the
double
pyramid?
the price.
1,200.
Really, the pyramid was less than the castle?
Yeah.
Huh. Fascinating.
Yep.
So those slopes aren't small, so they're able to get some space with that volume. But yeah.
I'll start off and say I think we might be getting a large-scale leaning tower of Pisa. Do I want that?
Yeah.
Not really.
Yeah. We've already seen a smaller version in the early days.
I think it would look cool. Will it be in my collection? Probably not. But I don't know what else they're going to do. What I hope they do is a remake of the Great Wall of China.
That'd be sick too.
And add to it and make it micro scale and a huge display model of that.
Beautiful landscape,
awesome.
yeah.
So I don't know, but I wanted to hear your guys' ideas on that.
I'd love to see a 4,000-piece falling water.
I mean,
there you go. It could be a massive falling water set. That'd be pretty
awesome.
cool too.
I don't know. I really have no genuine speculation for this because there's infinite things that it could be.
I never would have guessed the pyramid, and I never would have guessed Hajime Castle.
No,
so
they're very specific.
I have no idea where they could go.
Yeah,
I would want it to be something from ancient history. So another thing that comes to mind is the Pantheon, which is a cool building in Rome. However, very religious in background. It's now used as a mausoleum, but something like that would be awesome. So
I honestly even nothing named. I would just like to see an ancient Roman bathhouse would be cool.
Or a theater.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe not the Colosseum.
Ancient. You got me thinking. I'd love to see a Colossus of Rhodes or something.
Oh yeah, big statue. So
but those wouldn't sell for 4,000 pieces. Nobody would buy that.
Nobody but me.
Nobody.
Yeah.
There's any number of things it could be.
Exactly. Well, let's see. Okay.
Oh wait! Before we go, hang on. I got something here.
What do you got, Daniel?
What's this? A new Lego set.
Is that a skyline?
It is a skyline. Do you recognize any of those buildings?
That looks like the Atlanta skyline. I recognize those buildings.
That is the Atlanta skyline.
That's awesome. So, Daniel, what is this? Where did this come from? Why did we make this?
Well, it came from my pocket.
Oh yeah, it's good. That's good. No, seriously, what is this? For the people
so this is a
You gotta
kit
teach me how you do
that we fit in my pocket.
Yeah,
well,
it
you need bigger pockets.
It's the cargo shorts.
Yes, yeah.
Fair.
So this is a custom kit that we're developing here at Atlanta Brick Co. We're nearby Atlanta, so we are sad that they have never made an Atlanta skyline.
Mm-hmm.
So we are doing this as a custom kit that we will be selling primarily at Atlanta Brick Con, which at the time of the release of this video should be coming up in the next week or two at the Gas South Convention Center. So if you want to buy a copy in person, you can get one there. Or if we have leftovers at the end of that, we can also sell them on our website to anybody who's interested. And if it's really popular, we may make a whole nother batch. So I don't know how limited the release of this will be, but if you want one, I would recommend getting one.
Get it
as soon as
sooner rather than later.
So just to give you kind of a brief rundown of some of these buildings. You've got the Georgia Capitol building here. You've got the Bank of America Plaza, I believe. You've got the Ferris wheel that's nearby Centennial Park. One of the things that I know Garrett was sad was not included was the Varsity.
We'll be making an alternate model
expansion
just for the full Varsity.
If we were Lego and could do a printed tile there will be a printed tile that will say Atlanta on it. But if we had more of a budget for printed tiles, I think we could have done like the V sign as a printed tile or something.
That would have been pretty sick. Yeah,
I couldn't really come up with a good way to do it at this scale out of parts. So. Yeah, unfortunately couldn't get that. But yes, so this will be a new exciting custom kit that we're producing that will be available very soon.
Now, who designed that one, Daniel? That looks like a pretty cool...
I designed it.
Oh, there you go.
I did.
Congratulations.
This is one of my first ones that I have solo designed that will be made as a custom kit.
Very nice.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I think that's very fitting given your
tastes
for microscale.
Putting my microscale skills.
Daniel is the king of microscale stuff.
I appreciate
I'm sure some of y'all know about the modular building series.
Yes.
Micros and Greebles. Those are some of my favorite building styles.
For future reference, we're going to be doing Modulex, Microscale, a couple other between the stuff we need to do down the road. Yeah, but thank you guys for watching this video. This is a nice long discussion. Architecture went just as long as we wanted to do before we cut it off.
But, it's for adults, just like architecture.
18 plus video.
Yeah.
No. No. It is marked not for kids, but yeah. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. We got more fun videos coming out soon. Take care, everyone. You have a great rest of your day.